Usually when you think about like someone wrestling you to the ground, you picture a physical struggle. You picture grappling, sweating, someone using pure brute force to make you do something you really don't want to do.
Right, like an actual physical fight.
Exactly. But what if that struggle was completely invisible? What if someone was using your own natural momentum, your own, mental reflexes to flip you over and just empty your pockets?
And you wouldn't even realize you were in a fight until you were already walking away.
Yeah, exactly. So, welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to decode exactly that. We're looking at the invisible psychological jujitsu that sales professionals, negotiators, and honestly, even your closest friends use to manipulate your choices without you ever noticing.
It really is a form of martial arts, but entirely for the human mind. And the source material we are diving into today lays out the complete playbook. We're looking at excerpts from the seminal book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, by Dr. Robert B. Cialdini.
And what I love about this source is that, well, Cialdini didn't just sit in an ivory tower to write it. By his own admission, he was a total patsy.
Oh, yeah, he was.
Like, all his life, he says, he was an easy mark. He always found himself walking away with unwanted magazine subscriptions or tickets to things he had zero interest in.
Right, just getting talked into things
Exactly.
constantly.
So, as a social psychologist, he really wanted to know why he kept falling for it. He actually went undercover for 3 years. He infiltrated the training programs of encyclopedia companies, car dealerships, PR firms, and fundraising agencies to learn the closely guarded secrets of what he calls compliance professionals.
Which is exactly why this research is so critical for you listening right now. I mean, we live in the most complex, rapidly moving, information overloaded environment in human history.
Oh, absolutely. It's exhausting.
It is. And to survive this daily avalanche of data, our brains are forced to use mental shortcuts. Physically and neurologically just cannot process every single detail on every single decision. We just freeze up.
We'd never get out of bed.
Exactly. But here is the critical warning in this deep dive. Those exact shortcuts, the biological mechanisms keeping you sane, are being actively weaponized against you.
So, before we can understand how salespeople manipulate us, I feel like we need to understand the biology of it. Like, why are we so easily tricked in the first place? In the notes, there was this study about mother turkeys that completely threw me.
Oh, the polecat study. Yeah, that one is wild.
It really is. I always thought maternal instincts were this deeply complex emotional bond, but Cialdini makes it sound like turkeys are basically robots.
It is a shocking comparison, but ethologists, scientists who study animal behavior have proven it. Turkey mothers are incredibly loving and fiercely protective of their chicks. But that entire complex maternal response is triggered by one single isolated stimulus.
Just one thing.
Just one, the cheep cheep sound of a young turkey chick. If a chick makes that sound, the mother cares for it. If it doesn't, she will ignore it or, sometimes even kill it.
Which is horrifying. It's like her brain is just a tape recorder waiting for someone to press play on the mothering track.
Exactly. And animal behaviorists push this to an extreme to see just how robotic it really is. They used a stuffed model of a polecat. Now, to a mother turkey, a polecat is a mortal enemy.
Right, a natural predator.
Yep. Normally, the second a polecat gets near, the turkey attacks it with terrifying rage. When the researchers pulled this stuffed polecat toward the mother turkey on a string, she viciously attacked it, as expected.
Makes sense.
But then they put a small tape recorder inside the stuffed polecat that played the cheep, cheep sound of a baby turkey.
And she just stopped attacking.
More than that. When they pulled the stuffed predator toward her this time, she actually gathered her mortal enemy underneath her body to warm and protect it.
You're kidding.
No, her entire biological defense mechanism was overridden by a sound, and the moment they turned the recorder off, she viciously attacked the polecat again.
Click. Or the trigger goes off and the tape plays. But here is the truly humbling part. Humans have these exact same takes.
We really do, as much as we hate to admit it.
Right. We love to think we are deeply rational creatures analyzing all the variables, but we have our own cheap triggers. I read this study by Harvard psychologist Ellen Langer in the source material, and honestly, I thought it had to be a typo because the results were so absurd.
The Xerox machine one?
Yes. She went to a library where people were waiting in a long line to use a Xerox machine, and she tested different ways of asking to cut the line. First, she just made a polite request. She said, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine?"
And she got a 60% compliance rate, which, is not bad for just asking.
Right. Then she added a real reason. She said, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush?" Compliance skyrocketed to 94%.
Which totally tracks. We are empathetic creatures. We like to help people who are in a bind.
Exactly. That makes logical sense. But the third test is where our human tape recorder gets exposed. She used the trigger word because, but she followed it up with absolutely no new information.
This is the best part.
She said, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make some copies?"
Which is completely redundant. Everyone in that line has to make copies. That's why it's a line for the copier.
Exactly. But compliance stayed almost identical at 93%.
Mhm.
Nearly everyone let her cut the line just for saying the word because, even though the reason was meaningless.
It's just an automatic response.
It's the modern equivalent of someone cutting you off in traffic and just giving you a friendly wave. You don't know why they're waving, you don't know where they're going, but that gesture alone triggers your brain to say, oh, they must have a valid reason, and you don't honk.
That is a perfect analogy.
The word because is our cheap.
Yeah.
It triggers our, someone is giving me a reason I should comply tape.
And compliance professionals study these triggers relentlessly. They know exactly how to exploit them. Another automatic tape we all have is the expensive equals good shortcut.
Oh, I fall for this one all the time.
We all do. Cialdini shares a brilliant story about a friend who owned a jewelry store in Arizona. She had an allotment of turquoise jewelry that she just could not sell. It was the peak of the tourist season. The jewelry was good quality for the price, but it was just gathering dust.
So what did she do?
Well, she moved it to a central display, told her staff to push it hard. Nothing worked. Finally, before leaving on a buying trip, she left an exasperated scribbled note for her head saleswoman. It said, "Everything in this display case, price times 1/2. She was willing to take a massive loss just to get rid of it.
But the employee misread her boss's handwriting, right?
Yes, she thought the 1/2 was a 2. So she didn't discount the turquoise. She actually doubled the price of all of it.
Wow.
And when the owner returned a few days later, every single piece had sold at twice the original price.
That is wild.
The tourists saw the drastically higher price and automatically applied their mental shortcut. Expensive equals good. Price became a literal stand-in for quality. Click, were.
Okay, let's unpack this because it's really easy to sit here, point at those tourists and call them gullible. But aren't they just playing the odds?
What do you mean?
Well, in almost every other part of life, you actually do get what you pay for. Like a higher price usually does reflect better materials, better engineering, higher quality.
What's fascinating here is you are entirely correct, and evolutionary biology backs you up. The shortcut itself is deeply rational. Those tourists are on vacation. They do not have the time, the energy, or the specialized gemological knowledge to evaluate the molecular structure of every piece of turquoise they walk past.
Right, they just want a nice souvenir.
Exactly. The human brain consumes a massive amount of calories just to think. So, to conserve energy, it creates heuristics, which are basically rules of thumb. They are forced to rely on price as an indicator of quality because 99% of the time in a capitalist society, it works.
So the problem isn't the shortcut itself.
Right. The danger isn't that we have the shortcut. The danger is when a professional learns how to fake the trigger. They know they can artificially inflate a price or use a specific trigger word to make you play your automatic tape in a situation where it completely works against your best interests.
But that raises a massive question. If these triggers are so hardwired into our biology, how do salespeople actually weaponize them on a daily basis? Like they can't just slap a because on a $500 price tag and make me happy about giving them my money.
Yeah.
How do they actually get us to open our wallets?
They do it by manipulating your reality before you even see the price tag. They use something called the contrast principle. To understand why this works, you have to look at psychophysics.
Psychophysics, okay.
The human brain does not measure absolutes, it measures relative change.
Yeah.
If you want to experience this physically, get 3 buckets of water. 1 hot, 1 cold, and 1 at room temperature. Put your left hand in the cold water and your right hand in the hot water for about a minute.
Okay, I'm imagining it.
Then pull them out and plunge both hands into the room temperature bucket.
Your sensory perception just completely malfunctions, right?
Entirely.
Yeah.
Even though both hands are now in the exact same bucket of room temperature water, the hand that was in the cold water will send screaming signals to your brain that it is in hot water.
And the hand that was in the hot water will feel like it's freezing.
Yes. The physical reality of the water hasn't changed one bit, but your brain's perception of it has been entirely dictated by the event that preceded it.
And what's wild is that this doesn't just apply to physical sensations like temperature, this governs complex human judgment.
Exactly.
There was a study detailed in the text where male college students were asked to rate the attractiveness of a potential blind date from a photograph. But the researchers had them do this while they were watching an episode of the hit TV show Charlie's Angels, which obviously featured incredibly beautiful Hollywood actresses.
The contrast principle in action.
Right. Because of perceptual contrast, the students rated the normal everyday blind date as significantly less attractive than students who rated the exact same photo while watching a regular broadcast.
It skews your baseline.
It's like how today, if you spend 2 hours scrolling through highly edited, perfectly lit Instagram or TikTok models, regular people at the grocery store suddenly look worse to you. Your baseline for reality has been artificially shifted.
That is perfectly said. So
Mhm.
take that biological vulnerability and put it in a retail setting. Imagine a man walking into a fashionable men's store. He tells the salesperson he needs a three-piece suit and a sweater. Now, if you are that salesperson and your goal is to maximize your commission, which item do you show him first?
Well, common sense would tell me to sell the cheaper item first, right? Show him the $95 sweater. If a guy just drops nearly $500 on a suit, he's going to have major sticker shock.
That's the logical assumption.
Right, he'll be fiercely protective of whatever money he has left, so he'd definitely say no to an expensive sweater.
That is exactly what most people think, and it is entirely wrong. The clothiers are trained to do the exact opposite. They will always sell the expensive $495 suit first.
Because of the contrast principle.
Exactly. Because after you mentally commit to dropping nearly $500, a $95 sweater suddenly looks incredibly cheap by comparison. Cialdini quotes sales analysts Whitney, Hubin, and Murphy on this, and they state definitively a man will almost always pay more for whatever accessories he buys if he buys them after the suit purchase than before.
That is so
If
sneaky.
they showed the $95 sweater first, your brain anchors to that price. When they bring out the $495 suit next, the contrast principle works against them, making the suit look even more outrageously expensive.
Oh, that makes so much sense. This is exactly what car dealerships do. It completely explains personal spending habits that I've noticed in myself.
You've experienced this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You spend hours negotiating the $15,000 base price of a car. You fight tooth and nail over every $100. But once you finally agree to that massive number, the dealer suddenly suggests a $100 tinted window upgrade or a $200 special trim package.
And suddenly you're just saying yes to everything.
Yeah, because compared to $15,000, 200 bucks feels like absolute pennies. They bring up the extras one by one, independently, so each small price looks completely trivial next to the giant bucket of hot water you just plunged your hand into.
It's incredibly effective. Cialdini even shadowed a real estate agent named Phil to see this in action.
Oh, Phil, this guy.
Right. Phil had a specific strategy he used with every new client. He would always start out by showing potential buyers a couple of absolutely terrible rundown houses that his company had listed at wildly inflated prices.
Why would he do that?
Well, Phil called them his setup properties. He had zero intention of ever selling them. They were purely there to artificially lower the buyer's expectations. He wanted to plunge their hands into the freezing cold water.
Oh, wow.
Phil said he loved watching the buyer's eyes light up when he finally showed them a decent house at a normal price after dragging them through the dumps. The decent house suddenly looked like a majestic palace by comparison.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when you look at it that way, it's like they aren't even fighting us for our money. They're doing psychological jujitsu.
Using our own momentum.
Exactly. By using our own momentum and the natural laws of perception against us, they make it feel like it was our choice all along. The car buyer genuinely believes they want the tinted windows. The home buyer thinks they found a hidden gem. We think we're making a rational, independent decision, but we've been perfectly set up.
And that feeling of independence is crucial to the manipulator. But the contrast principle isn't just a retail trap. It's not just about draining your bank account. It is just as frequently weaponized in our personal lives to force us into doing favors, accepting excuses, or navigating social dynamics on a university campus.
I was dying laughing at this one example in the text. It's a letter written by a college student named Sharon to her parents, and it flawlessly demonstrates how contrast influences family dynamics.
This is a classic.
It goes like this. Dear Mother and Dad, since I left for college, I've been remiss in writing. But before you read on, please sit down.
Never a good start.
No. She says, I'm getting along pretty well now. The skull fracture and the concussion I got when I jumped out the window of my dormitory when it caught on fire is pretty well healed. I only spent 2 weeks in the hospital.
Oh, the poor parents.
I know. Fortunately, she continues, the fire was witnessed by a gas station attendant who invited me to share his apartment. We have fallen deeply in love and are planning to get married before my pregnancy begins to show.
It just keeps escalating.
The reason for the delay in our marriage is that my boyfriend has a minor infection, and I carelessly caught it from him. Now that I have brought you up to date, I want to tell you that there was no dormitory fire. I did not have a concussion. I was not in the hospital. I am not pregnant. I am not infected, and there is no boyfriend.
A big reveal.
However, I'm getting a D in American history and an F in chemistry, and I want you to see those marks in their proper perspective.
It is brilliant. I mean, Sharon might be failing chemistry, but she has a masterful grasp of perceptual contrast. A D and an F are
Okay, Cialdini shared a personal story of how he fell for this, and it is so relatable. He was walking down the street when an 11-year-old Boy Scout approached him. The kid asks Cialdini if he wants to buy tickets to the annual Boy Scout circus for $5 apiece.
a pretty standard request.
Right, but Cialdini does not want to spend his precious Saturday night at a Boy Scout circus, so he says no. This scout immediately retreats to a smaller request. He says, well, if you don't want to buy any tickets, how about buying some of our big chocolate bars? They're only $1 each.
And what did he do?
Cialdini ends up buying 2 of them. And as he walks away, he realizes he's been totally played because he actually hates chocolate, but he loves his dollars. Why did he instinctively hand over his money for something he didn't even want?
Because the Boy Scout made a concession. He retreated from his initial $5 request down to a $1 request. According to the rule of reciprocation, when someone compromises or makes a concession to us, our brain registers a massive social pressure to make a concession in return.
So Cialdini felt the debt.
Exactly. His only available concession in that moment was to say yes to the smaller request. And thanks to the contrast principle, that $1 chocolate bar looked extremely cheap compared to the $5 ticket he had just been anchoring on.
I read about this wild experiment they did on a university campus to test exactly this. They wanted to see how this plays out for students navigating everyday social dynamics. Researchers posed as representatives of the county youth counseling program and walked up to random university students.
Just out of the blue.
Right. They asked if the students would be willing to chaperone a group of juvenile delinquents on a day trip to the zoo. And naturally, 83% of the students flat out refused to spend their precious free time wrangling troubled youth at a zoo.
Right, because it's a huge ask with zero reward. But then the researchers tried the rejection then retreat technique on a completely different group of students.
How did they change it?
Before they ever mentioned the zoo trip, they first asked the students for an absolutely massive favor. They asked, would you commit to dedicating 2 hours a week for a minimum of 2 years to act as a counselor to a juvenile delinquent?
2 years.
Unsurprisingly, every single student refused this massive request. But right after they got that rejection, the researchers retreated to the smaller request. They said, well, if you can't do that, would you be willing to chaperone a group of juvenile delinquents on a day trip to the zoo?
And compliance tripled. 50% of the students suddenly agreed to the zoo trip.
Wait,
So just to be perfectly clear, by asking for something huge that you know will get rejected, the second, smaller request looks like a concession on your part, which then triggers my biological need to compromise and meet you in the middle.
if we connect this to the bigger picture, you just described the hidden machinery behind so much of the modern world. This exact psychological exploit is the basis of almost all labor negotiations.
Oh.
Yes, a union or a corporation will intentionally start with an extreme demand they know they will never get, just so they can retreat to the deal they actually wanted all along, forcing the other side to concede. It's how TV producers get controversial jokes past network censors.
No way.
They do. They will purposefully write unbelievably offensive dialogue into the script so the censor cuts it. Then the writers retreat to the mildly offensive joke they actually wanted on air, and the censor approves it as a compromise.
Wow. It's also why digital subscriptions or apps will ask you for a massive yearly commitment first, and when you try to click away, they suddenly offer you a seemingly cheap monthly tier.
Exactly. For the manipulator, it is a brilliant heads I win, tails you lose scenario. If you miraculously agree to the big request, they made a massive profit. If you say no, they retreat to the smaller request, you feel obligated to reciprocate, and they still win.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means that your daily life is an absolute minefield of these invisible triggers. The next time you are sitting in a dealership buying a car, and the dealer fully negotiates the base price before suddenly throwing in a tire package, or the next time a friend asks for a massive favor that you turn down, only for them to immediately pivot to a smaller favor, you are likely hearing the cheap cheap of a manipulator pressing play on your internal tape.
This raises an important question. How do we actually survive this? Because we can't just stop using mental shortcuts.
Right, the modern world moves way too fast.
We need the expensive equals good shortcut to save cognitive energy, and we absolutely need the rule of reciprocation to function in a cooperative society. You can't just turn off your humanity.
So what's the defense?
The answer lies in paying attention to your physical body. It's about noticing that physical sensation, that literal pit in your stomach when you feel trapped or unduly pressured, when you feel cornered by sudden concessions, or when an item's price suddenly feels trivial simply because of the massive price you saw just before it. You must hit pause.
Just take a breath.
Yes. You have to actively separate the salesperson from the product. You have to take a breath and ask yourself, am I buying this sweater or this car upgrade for its actual utility, or am I just reacting to the psychological setup?
And I want to leave you with a final, slightly terrifying thought to mull over. This wasn't deeply discussed in our breakdown today, but it is heavily implied by Cialdini's broader work. He notes a quote by the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead, who said that civilization advances by increasing the number of operations we can perform without thinking about them.
Which sounds great on paper.
It does. But look at our world today. Technology, social media, and the 24-hour news cycle are accelerating the pace of modern life to breakneck speeds. Information is coming at us significantly faster than our human brains can physically or biologically process it.
We're constantly overloaded.
Because of this overwhelming cognitive load, we are going to be forced to rely on these primitive click word shortcuts more than ever before just to get through a normal Tuesday. Is it possible that the very technology designed to make us hyper-intelligent and globally connected is actually regressing us?
Turning us back into those turkeys.
Exactly. Are we slowly being turned into automated targets, constantly overwhelmed, just waiting for a marketer, a politician, or a salesman to press play on our biological tapes? The invisible jujitsu match is happening right now, inside your own head. Make sure you know who you're fighting.